got this. Hello, Dana ISD family. I'm so excited to be here and welcome all of you to our 2020-2021 Fall Convocation. I wish we could be with you in person, bringing in the new school year and cheering you on in our traditional pep rally setting. Nonetheless, we are communicating with you virtually once again and making the best of our current situation. First and foremost, I would like to take a few moments to express our heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of our current and former employees who lost their battle against COVID-19. They were part of this district for many years and will be remembered by their peers for their dedication, selflessness, and service to our students. We understand that in a tight-knit community such as ours, tragedies like these hit many of us close to home. However, please know that our thoughts and prayers are with you as you begin the process of healing. I would now like to take this opportunity to call for a moment of silence to honor those we lost and to pay our respects to the hundreds of others from our local and neighboring communities who have also perished from this pandemic. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed spending some quality time with family and friends on your summer break and that you feel refreshed, restored, and ready to take on another exciting school year. Although we are starting virtually, we feel confident that our district is better equipped and better prepared to serve our amazing student body. As you know, we have been working diligently behind the scenes to make sure that every one of our district's teachers, administrators, and staff have the tools and training needed to begin online instruction with students. In our efforts to narrow the digital gap, laptops were purchased for all of our teachers and Chromebooks and iPads were purchased for kinder through 12th grade students. Additional professional development is also being made available throughout the year to help our teachers become more efficient when educating our students online. We have no doubt that you will excel and provide our students with an excellent education and the 21st century skills they need to be successful in their future careers. In these challenging times, please remember that our students will need you more now than ever before. They will look for an occasional pep talk for encouragement, a happy face to make them smile, support and guidance to help them through the tough days, and patience as they try to grasp what you are trying to teach them. Remember, keep your focus on the students and it will be a great year. As our theme states, be bold, be brave, and you will be triumphant. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our Board of Trustees President, Mrs. Watts.
Hello, Dana ISD family. On behalf of the Dana ISD School Board, I would like to welcome you to the new 2020-21 school year. Most of us never thought that we'd still be struggling with this pandemic several months after it's made its way through the valley. But here we are. Fortunately, the district has taken the necessary steps and is now better prepared to deal with our current situation. For instance, we have invested millions of dollars in technology so that you, our Dana ISD family, can have the resources and tools you need to provide our students with a first-rate education as we begin online instruction. Thank you for all that you do. We are confident that you will be successful and hopefully things will slowly get back to normal and we can see each other soon. Have a fantastic year and know that we are behind you every step of the way.
Thank you, Mrs. Watts, for your kind words of encouragement and support. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. David Fuentes, Hidalgo County Commissioner for Precinct 1.
On behalf of Hidalgo County, its judge, the commissioners, and all of my staff here at Precinct 1, we want to say we hope that you have a fantastic school year. We know that these are unprecedented times and a time that we will never forget, and probably one of the most difficult times that our children will be going through in their lifetime. As adults, we have the capacity to be able to adjust. We take our life lessons and everything that we've been through. We use that wisdom and apply it to situations like this we're able to manage ourselves a little bit better, maybe a little bit easier than our children do. So at this time, I know that it's got to be extremely difficult to change your plans, to modify what you think, what you thought you were going to do and what you end up doing this school year. But please remember, how difficult this must be and how confusing it must be for children. And we all know that we need to be as sensitive, as compassionate as we can towards them. When I talk about changing your plans and maybe changing your expectations, I want to share a story with you about when I was in college. I remember I had in high school, pretty decent athlete. I played a lot of sports and thought I was pretty decent at them, but I went up to Notre Dame and played on the Notre Dame football team, and I was a walk-on, which basically means that I tried out, I played for the team, and I wasn't one of their star players, I was just a member of the team. And I can very vividly remember the very first practice that I went to, again thinking that my best days in high school were where I was going to continue my college career, and somehow that would translate to something very positive and productive. And I remember being in my first contact drill. I had a guy in front of me that was a scholarship player, an All-American high school football player from the state of Pennsylvania. And I remember they snapped the ball, and my job was to block him and try to get away from him as quickly as possible and go make a tackle. So right when the ball was snapped, this guy grabbed me by the chest right here, grabbed me, extended his arms, picked me up off the ground, threw me on the floor, and then he lay down on top of me. And when he did that, first of all, I was stunned and shocked because I probably weighed about 50 pounds more than he did. But he just threw me on the ground, laid on top of me, and really just embarrassed me. That was the very first snap that I ever took at the University of Notre Dame, and I was extremely embarrassed, but I was committed to doing something better. And I knew that maybe I just underestimated the guy in front of me and thought that it was going to be a lot easier than it was. So on this second snap, I was going to do a lot better. I was committed to really just running over this guy and going to make the tackle. So I lined up, bit my mouthpiece a little bit harder. My hands were in the ground a little bit deeper, and I was ready to take off. And that second snap went off, and that guy across from me, John was his name, he hit me in the chest, snapped his arms out, picked me up, and threw me on the ground again. And he lay on top of me. So that was 2 in a row, and that was because I was really trying. It was then when I realized that I was out of my element, that I really wasn't ready for what I thought was going to be a pretty easy transition between high school and college football. And I quickly realized that my expectations of just showing up and putting on a uniform was going to be good enough. My plans had to change, and I had to change my entire strategy about if I was going to be fully committed to making this work, that I had to change my approach and that I had to change my outlook. And I had to realize that my own shortcomings were causing me to be unsuccessful. So at this point in time, maybe we planned for a better school year. Maybe we planned to be back in the classroom and to use the same lesson plans that we used last time, or do everything the same the way we did in years past. We all are craving for a normal life again, what we used to consider normal. But I think those days are behind us. And this pandemic is going to change our entire lifetime. Maybe we have people that will never, walk out in public again without face masks. Maybe we're going to wash our hands and use hand sanitizer more than we ever have in our life in this school year. But I think that goes back to we had expectations, and those have been thrown out the door. So now it's our job to refocus, to take all of those life lessons that we have, all the experience that you have in teaching. Maybe you're a new teacher, maybe you're a new staff member. You're gonna have to rely on your mentors and the people that are around you to help guide you navigate these very murky waters. So all I can tell you is that I hope and pray that through this all, that you can work together as a staff, lean on each other, help each other to get through this. And I know that you can, and I know that we all can. We've had to change our approach in the way we do things, from things like hurricane response and life-saving methods, wearing masks now and social distancing inside our shelters, we've had to change everything. The whole game plan has thrown out the window, and we've got to replace it with something new. And I think that's what's going to happen here. But I'm very confident that with the leadership that you have at your school district, with the teachers that have the experience, and all the administration that you guys have, you're going to be able to make it through this. I'm very confident in that. And I know that that's going to translate well to the way students are going to learn this year. From distance learning and having teachers lead through a Zoom class and a virtual classroom, or maybe just modular lessons. I know that you guys will overcome. I know that we have a brighter future ahead of us. And I know that because we've seen the resilience of our community and what we're capable of when we come together and accomplish something. So it is my hope and prayer that this school year finds you healthy and successful, and that translates to student learning. Remember that we still have a job to do in getting students and kids prepared for their future, whether it be life skills, whether it be college education, whatever they choose to be, but it is their choice because of the education that you're providing them on a daily basis. So on behalf of Precinct 1, Hidalgo County Commissioners, myself, the judge, and all of our staff here, we wish you an extremely successful school year, and we will be praying for you and hope that all goes extremely well. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. And now it's time to bring in our keynote speaker, Dr. Juliet Garcia. She's the former president of the University of Texas at Brownsville and now professor of communication at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
Welcome, Donna ISD faculty and staff. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to be with you as personally as I can, to welcome you back to what I think is going to be a very wonderful year for all of us together. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I think might be helpful in figuring out how we make sense of this moment that we're in. My own father was born in Monterrey, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States during the Mexican Revolution. He was a legal resident alien and carried a green card every day of his life. My mother was born in Harlingen, where the Mexican children attended a segregated school and could swim in the public pool only one day a year. The next day, the pool was drained and cleaned. My parents came of age in the Rio Grande Valley during the Great Depression, a time when a college education was out of reach for most, and certainly for them. And although both had excelled while in high school, my mother even being named salutatorian of her graduating class, neither was able to attend college. But their unfulfilled dreams for a college education fueled their desire to make sure that my brothers and I got ours. Every month, my parents placed $5 into 3 savings accounts designated for one purpose: to fund our college education. It was not because my family had a lot of money. Quite the opposite. My father's first job was as a janitor, although eventually he worked his way up to manage the same office where once he had emptied trash cans. Our mother died very young at the age of 40. I was 9. My brothers were 11 and 5. My father raised my brothers and I pretty much alone. One evening after our mother had died, I remember our father sitting down at my mother's sewing machine. At first, he just stared at it. Then he called for me and asked that I help him thread the needle so he could mend something. After our mother's death, jobs in our home belonged to everyone. We all took turns doing whatever needed to be done. And expectations belonged to everyone too. All 3 of us were expected to go to college and succeed. One day, our father sat the 3 of us down and told us that we had survived the most difficult thing for a child, the loss of our mother. He proclaimed, as if anointing us with a sacred power, he said, "Nothing that will happen in your life from now on will be worse than what you have already survived, and you are the stronger for it." I wasn't exactly sure what he meant by that. It wasn't until much later, as life's challenges presented themselves one by one, that I came to understand the power and the strength that he had given us with those sacred words. After completing my freshman year at our local community college, I married at age 19 and moved to Houston so my husband could get a job while I went to the University of Houston. I finished my bachelor's degree, and a few months after graduation, we had our first baby. I had applied to start graduate school at the urging of my husband. He said, "We're already here in Houston. We're used to being poor, and college seems easy for you." So almost as a lark, I applied for a graduate program in classical rhetoric and public address. I had been an English major, debated in college, and loved the idea of studying classical rhetoric. To my great surprise, I was accepted for the fall semester. I was the only Latina in the master's program. And then, much to my surprise, I found out I was pregnant again. So now I had a 4-month-old baby, I was starting graduate school, and I was expecting our second baby. My husband would work a shift that would allow him to take care of the baby while I went to class in the morning. I would race home after class, and he would go to work from 3 to 11. The next day, we would repeat the drill. Miraculously, it worked. Some days and some weeks were better than others, but 2 years later, we had 2 babies. I had completed my master's degree, and we were on our way back home to Brownsville. We bought a small house and settled in. I taught at the community college where I had begun my own college education just a few years earlier. I was now 23 and began teaching students that were often older than I was. My best students were Vietnam veterans that I had gone to high school with. They had come to know firsthand the suffering of a dreadful war and felt privileged to have returned and now be in college. You've heard that we learn more than we teach from our students. I learned humility and honor from them. After teaching about 2 more years, I ached for more. One day, on an old-fashioned bulletin board in the faculty study, I read an announcement about a Ford Foundation fellowship that would fund my entire doctoral studies if I could get it. I remember telling my husband about it. After all, if I got it, we'd have to move away from our hometown again. He would have to find a new job again. We would have to leave my father yet again. And now we had a 3- and 4-year-old. That night, I asked my husband what he thought about me applying. Almost without hesitation, he said, "Why not? Give it a try." After a complicated process, I received word that I'd been awarded the Ford Fellowship. All I needed now was to get admitted to the University of Texas. This was 1974. The number of doctorates being awarded to Latinos nationwide was less than 1%. Thank goodness I didn't know the odds were so great in those days against me succeeding. But if I did get into UT, then we needed to try and get into married student housing. My husband needed to find a job in Austin, and I needed a good school for my 3- and 4-year-old babies. I was willing to tackle all of that, but first I had to be accepted to UT Austin. I had applied and received a letter saying that I was one of many qualified applicants. They would get back to me. It wasn't a rejection, but it wasn't an acceptance either. So I decided to call the person who had sent me the letter. I called and explained that I needed to know as soon as possible if I had been accepted. She said she would get back to me. A week later, I called her again. A week later, I called her again. Same response each time. Now, you and I know that I was treading on thin ice by this time. In Spanish, estaba molestando. In English, I was being bothersome at best. But I had to know, and I had to know quickly. There was much yet to do. So I called a 5th time. I said, "This is," and she said, "I know who this is." She placed my call on hold, or so she thought. Instead, I was on a conference call between she and the chairman of the department. I didn't breathe. I didn't want them to know that I was still on the call. They talked, and finally the chairman said, "Oh, let her in." She pressed a button, taking him off the call, and said to me, after serious consideration, and I thought, I know, because I heard every word, she said, "You're in." What if I hadn't made that 5th call? What if I thought that maybe I wasn't meant to go on and get my doctorate? It never occurred to me. I knew that if I got in, I would do well because I wanted it so badly. How many times have you thought about giving up because you've let yourself believe that maybe it wasn't meant to be? Maybe I wasn't the right candidate after all. Maybe those programs are for others, but not for me. How might my life have changed if I hadn't made that 5th call? We moved to Austin. into married student housing, found a wonderful Montessori school for my babies, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven because UT had 26 libraries at that time. I swore I'd study in each one of them, and I did. 3 years later, we moved back home again, now with a doctorate in hand. That doctorate armed and prepared me for a life doing work that matters. 10 years later, I would be named president of the community college, where I first began my own college studies. Later, I would be named president of the University of Texas at Brownsville, a university that we established and that graduated over 35,000 students while I was president. Later, I would help lead the effort to establish the first new university in the U.S., the 21st century, UT Rio Grande Valley, and its own medical school, ensuring that never again will a child grow up in the Rio Grande Valley without the benefit that my own parents yearned for, a public, affordable, high-quality university education. And later, I would serve as a member of the board of the Ford Foundation and get to do work that matters on behalf of Ford in Brazil, Peru, Mexico, Vietnam, India, and South Africa. I know my parents are proud of their legacy. My older brother's a nurse. My younger brother's an engineer with 2 degrees from UT. In one generation, we went from carrying a green card and not being able to swim in the public pool to saving lives, designing innovative computer systems, and building a university. But the road was not always easy. Along the way, I would be sued by the Department of Homeland Security because I would not sign permission for them to build a wall across our campus. We spent a year in federal court. I thought often about that year, how my father's words about strength and resilience applied. But today, there is no 18-foot border wall across our campus. We did work that matters. I don't know why we have to lose people we love to make us stronger. I don't know why we have to suffer this horrific pandemic and lose people that we love to learn important lessons about being responsible global citizens or about preparedness, innovation, and collaboration. But I do know that we must never give in or give up. I do know that we will learn from this terrible COVID-19 time. I do know that we're the luckier ones. We have a job. When I was a president at UT Brownsville, I would stop and talk to the carpenters and the gardeners that work sometimes outside in the hot sun. And I'd say something like, "Qué calor tan fuerte, qué trabajo tan duro." They would respond with something like, "Pero gracias a Dios, doctora, que hay trabajo." Every one of us knows of someone who has lost their job as a result of the COVID virus. Every one of us knows of someone who has died as a result of the COVID virus. The children of Donna ISD are all experiencing the same concerns that we are. They're asking, is my mother next to get sick or to die? Each of you has never been needed more than you are today, because every child in Donna ISD School District is worried to some degree about food, shelter, their parents' jobs, or their parents' health. So while I do not know how much longer we must suffer from this infectious coronavirus, I do know that tomorrow always brings hope. The children of Donna ISD have never needed each of you more than they do right now to survive and thrive, to give hope to those around you, to give a meal or a helping hand. And just as my father pronounced those sacred words to me and my brothers, I now pronounce them to each of you. You too are resilient and powerful. You are a survivor of a worldwide pandemic, and you are the stronger for it. What an honor it is to have a job and to do work that matters. We have much yet to do, and the thousands of children and parents of Donna ISD are counting on each of you this year more than ever. Felicidades to all of you, and welcome back to doing important work where it really matters.